Well, I was just informed that I think you saw a picture, but you didn't hear anything. Maybe that would be better. I don't know, but we had an audio issue. Hopefully it's fixed. Hopefully you can now hear me. So I will start all over again. Welcome to our live stream. It really is live. If it had been taped, we would never have run that, I can assure you. Pam Case, our senior producer, is normally with me on these Friday afternoon live streams. She is unable to be here today, got some personal things to take care of, so we are going to give her an excused absence, but only today. We will expect her back next week. So that means I'll be reading the questions. They'll be fed to me. I've got a whole array of equipment in front of me, an iPad, an iPhone, a MacBook, and even an Apple Watch. I'm appled up here today to be able to communicate with you. So your questions will come to me and I'll be reading them. We want you to send questions. Send it in the chat. Better yet, send it in a super chat. It goes right to the top. Now, we do have moderators standing by. They'll be watching the chat, making sure I get your questions. But we want to remind you, if you haven't already, why not right now you subscribe to the channel? Hit the notification bell, that little one right there on the screen, and also leave us a comment. Leave us a like and a share. That means let other people know in your directory that you're watching the live stream, and if their IQ was above single digit, they would be doing the same thing. If they're not watching the live stream, it's pretty clear that that means their IQ is in the single digits. But we'll leave it at that. One of the things we love to do each week is to fly our plane over the studio and drop what we call the Psaki bomb. And we have plenty of ammunition this week. First up, Jen Psaki was asked about whether or not President Biden can beat COVID. Watch.
President Biden has repeatedly promised to shut down this virus. He has talked about wanting to end the pandemic. Is that still possible? Does he still believe that that is possible? Or are we starting to shift now, especially with the rise of this variant, to perhaps accepting that we need to live with COVID for years to come?
Well, first I would say there's a lot we don't know about the variant yet, and that is challenging and frustrating. I understand for Americans, for all of you, and we want to give the space and time for the public health officials who are working 24/7 to assess and provide guidance on it.
Now, what I find interesting is that when Joe Biden came into office, he said Donald Trump had totally boogered up. He didn't use those words. Those are my words. But that that Donald Trump had really messed up the response to COVID-19, even though there were so many things that we did not know early on. And he was depending upon the advice of a lot of other people who apparently didn't know a whole lot either, like Dr. Fauci. Nevertheless, the president's actions, President Trump's actions, did result in getting a vaccine, actually 3 to market in record time. Nothing like it had ever been done under Operation Warp Speed. He never got real credit for that. In fact, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris both said they wouldn't take a vaccine if he had anything to do with it. So they made it hard for a lot of people to trust the quality and the efficiency of the vaccine. All that aside, throughout 2020, there were many people in the mainstream media and many Democrats who said that every single COVID death was on Donald Trump, as if he was personally responsible for people getting infected with COVID-19, even though he wasn't. So if that's true, then whoever is president now, I guess, would also be responsible for every death. That means since we've had more deaths in 2021 than we did in 2020 itself, that Joe Biden has had a worse record on COVID and COVID deaths than Donald Trump. Now, that's not what I'm trying to convey as my own view. I'm just wanting to know if some of the people in mainstream media and the Democrat Party who said that about Donald Trump will now say that about Joe Biden. My guess is the answer is no. Well, another Psaki bomb this week was when Jen Psaki was asked to respond to Israel's request to stop nuclear talks due to Iran's nuclear blackmail. You would think that she would push hard against Iran, who's building up an arsenal that they have promised publicly that they would use against Israel. But here's her response. Watch.
Nuclear talks, the Israeli PM, Naftali Bennett, spoke with Blinken today and suggested Iran nuclear talks should be halted and stressed that Iran is conducting, quote, nuclear blackmail. What's the U.S. response? Is there any consideration of halting the talks at this point?
Every country, including, of course, our friends in Israel, is entitled to their own point of view.
That's it? They're entitled to their own point of view? Of course they're entitled to their own point of view, but if their point of view is that they want to protect themselves from being vaporized, do you not think that's something the United States could speak out on a little more strongly? Thank you, Jen Psaki, for being such a clarion voice of truth and reason when it comes to the Israelis being nuked out of existence by the Iranians. Unbelievable. All right, another Psaki bomb this week. Nothing is off the table during the pandemic, she says. We're willing to do whatever it takes to fight the pandemic. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's what she says. Let's watch.
Not go further in the direction of public health and mandates, given the potential risk and the fact that we're headed into winter?
Sure. Well, one, I would say that nothing is off the table, including domestic travel.
Oh, nothing's off the table. So we just have to wait and see what the government allows the free people to do. Used to be that the government protected our liberties. They didn't tell us what they were. But this is a new day, and this is kind of what we're dealing with. Folks, I have said many times, look, COVID is real. I hate what it's done to friends of mine. I hate that some of my very dear friends have died from it. But I don't need the government to be my parent and tell me exactly what I must do. I'm going to try to take every precaution I can, and then I'll make some decisions, some of which I hope are good. But I'm wondering, when she says nothing is off the table, are we going to get to the place where, like they do in Australia, they start sending us to barbed wire camps because we don't get the vaccination that Joe Biden thinks we ought to have? She said nothing's off the table. We shall see. I don't know. Finally, this little truth bomb from Jen Psaki. This is pretty fun because Peter Doocy, who has got to be the person she really does not enjoy being in the press room, asked if all of these looting mobs, these highly organized looting mobs out in California particularly, going into everything from a Home Depot to a Louis Vuitton store to a CVS, and they just go in and they wreak havoc and they steal hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff in a flash. And she is asked the question, does she believe that the pandemic is the root cause for this crime spree? Watch this.
So when a huge group of criminals organizes themselves and they want to go loot a store, a CVS, a Nordstrom, a Home Depot, until the shelves are clean, you think that's because of the pandemic?
I think a root cause in a lot of communities is the pandemic, yes.
She said that with a straight face. I thought it was a comedy routine and we were going to hear a glump from a snare drum, but nope. She actually stood there flat-footed and said that the reason people are looting stores is because of the pandemic. Now, what does she mean by that? That one of the physical effects of COVID is that it causes people to commit crime? I can't even imagine what she meant by that. How that somehow COVID and the presence of it has inspired people to form large gangs of 100, up to 100 people, and rush into a store in an organized fashion and just steal stuff like there was no tomorrow. I mean, I've heard some pretty weird things. That's weird. Hey, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment. Also, give us a like and share with others. All of that is quite important. Hey, let's go to some questions that you're sending in. This comes from Swadlow. Interesting name. Says, hey, Gov Mike, would you ever get back into politics? I will help a whole lot of people who are running. If the question is, will I run for something? The answer is no. I've been there, done that, have a whole warehouse full of T-shirts to prove that I did it. But there is a point now that I think it's time to maybe help someone else I know, which leads to the second question from Michael DiLorenzo. He says, what do you think your daughter's chances are in the governor's race? Well, if I stay out of it, her chances are really good. Honestly, I think her chances are real good even if I don't stay out of it. She has no opponents now in the primary that are announced yet. Of course, there's still time for somebody to get into the race in the Republican primary in Arkansas for the office of governor. There are several Democrats, so one of them will emerge as the primary opponent that she will have. But she's doing everything that I can see that is the right thing to do to win the race. And the single most important part of that, she's not taking it for granted, which is a very, very foolish and irresponsible thing to do if you're a candidate. And even though she's raised so much more money than any other candidate, and she's unopposed in the primary, she's immensely popular, all of those things that apparently I wasn't for president. But in all of that, it still doesn't mean that you put your feet up and you coast and you say, I got this, because it's not over until the last box of ballots are retrieved from up under a table in the middle of the night. So you got to constantly be vigilant. So I think her chances are real good. By the way, I love the fact that I have been named senior advisor to my daughter's campaign. A lot of people say, that's impressive. Well, let me explain what that means. I'm a senior citizen, and I'm babysitting her kids quite a bit these days, and I advise them when it's time to go to bed. Thus, I'm a senior advisor. All right, here's this one from Jay Brinley. Ask, with all those apples, you'll keep doctors away for weeks. Good point, Jay Brinley. I like that, and I sure hope I do, because I'm no fan of going to the doctor, especially when they get out those rubber gloves and pop them on the wrist. Not a good day. Virginia Holland says, has anyone paid attention to the fact that they don't mention the Delta variant anymore? Well, look, I think we're going to see this maybe forever. I don't know that we'll ever see the end of COVID. And there will always be variants. It's the nature of any virus. I was a little surprised when the Omicron virus, the variant came out, that immediately countries were locked down and people were canceling everything. And we didn't even know if it was all that serious or significant. And you do begin to wonder, how much of this is about controlling the virus? How much is it about controlling us? And that ought to be of concern to us all. Bob hopefully says, I like that, Bob hopefully. Are you as surprised as Biden's economy at the jobs report from November? Well, that's a great way for us to lead into some of the things that happened, because if you heard today, jobs report came out for November. They were expecting about 550,000 new jobs. The number was more like 210. Folks, you could have doubled the number, and it still would have been a very bad report for the Biden administration. CNBC, you could tell they were stunned. They were on air live when the report came in. Here's how they played it.
Our November jobs report is coming out. 210,000 on non-farm payrolls, a huge miss. 235,000 on private payrolls. And if we look at what's going on with regard to the change in manufacturing, 31,000. That's also a bit of a miss.
A miss? A bit of one? No, it was a huge miss. I mean, it was really bad news. The only people celebrating this were the Biden officials, and how they celebrate this, I don't know. It's like a big fire happens at your house, your whole house burns down, and you get out and say, boy, I'll tell you what, that fire didn't touch our barn. By golly, we had a wonderful day today. I've never seen anything like this. Now, I don't know that Biden really understands how bad this report was. And here's what you should notice. Typically, about this time of year, you see seasonal jobs because of the holidays, and the job numbers go up anyway. They didn't. They fell flatly. Bloomberg had the same kind of report, says they thought the Fed was confused about it. Let's watch for what Bloomberg had to say.
The change in non-farm payrolls comes in only half the level we anticipated, 210,000. That's a real surprise, and that is going to cause some head scratching at the Fed. What do we do about that?
Yeah, what do we do about that? Well, I'll tell you what you do. Turn to Jen Psaki. She was on BSNBC this morning, and she had really, obviously, the numbers. She knew what they were. They asked her about it. Watch this. This is the dodge of dodges. If she played this way during junior high gym class, she never got hit by the dodgeball. Watch.
Jobs number just crossed 210 jobs just added. So 210,000. So if we look at that breaking news right now, that's a number that feels a little, little off?
Well, I know this sounds a little archaic, but I can't comment on them until 9:30 by rules because I work at the White House.
Well, if you can't comment on it, why the heck are you sitting at that desk commenting on everything but that? That's the biggest news of the day. You're the press secretary. I can't answer that. Let's go to some of your questions because you're sending a bunch of them and we appreciate it. This is from Suprov. She says, do you think that the states that are telling the banks they will withdraw business, will that affect the agenda of not investing in fossil fuels? In case you're not aware, a little background. 15 states so far, could be as many as 21 before it's all over, led by Republicans, are telling the biggest banks in the country that if they start withdrawing financial services support from fossil fuel companies, the states who control over $600 billion of assets, these states will not put a dime of those funds in any of those banks. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. This is a brilliant move on the part of financial officers, mostly state treasurers across the country, who are saying to these financial services companies, to Chase and to Goldman and to all the big banks, they're telling them, hey, you want to play hardball? Well, here's one to your head. You tell fossil fuel companies, whether it's Exxon or Mobil or whoever, that you're not going to let them do business. They can't use credit cards, they can't deposit money, they can't use a checking account. You tell them that, and we're going to tell you there will not be another dime of our state's resources in your bank. That's one way to get attention. I love it. And I hope more states and actually more businesses will start saying to these big banks that we can all play hardball and everybody gets a shot to get up to the plate. This comes from Joe Woodrum. He says, do you ever believe we'll get back to the place where you ask an individual what they are, and their response being, I'm an American, unhyphenated, no color, no nationality attached? Joe, I hope so. I mean, that's the country that I think we all grew up wanting it to be. It's the country that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. so brilliantly said in the I Have a Dream speech there on the Capitol Mall back in 1963, when he says he dreamed of the day when people would be judged by the character of their hearts and not the color of their skin. And that was the dream. For many of us, it is still the dream. That I don't look at you and I say, are you white, are you black, are you Asian, are you Native American? Because I don't care. You're just American. And I don't look at you and say, are you male, are you female? Because it doesn't matter. And I don't look at you and I say, are you rich or are you poor? Because it doesn't matter. You're my fellow American, and that's all that ought to matter. And I pray we get back to that. It would be absolutely wonderful if we did. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We want you to do that. You may have already done it, so if you have, all the more reason for you to share it with people. But if you haven't subscribed, when you do, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, tell us what you think. Be sure and like the page, and of course, share it with others. I want to get to this question from Mikey Barbie. Interesting name. Is there anything happy to talk about for a change? Oh, absolutely. It's December, my man. It's Christmas time. It's time that you can go out and be generous. Leave an extra big tip to your server every time you go out to eat. Find a total stranger on the street. Hand them a $20 bill, or if you can afford it, a $100 bill. Watch somebody filling up their tank at the gas pump. Walk over and say, I got this, I'll pay for it. Or before they even get out of their car and start to fill up their tank, go put your credit card in and say, fill it up and do it on me. I find that's some of the ways that can make your Christmas a gazillion times better than it ever would be. It's not about trying to figure out what you're going to get. It's about figuring out what can you give, and especially if you can give it to someone who cannot give anything back to you. That's a lot to make you happy, and a lot that will make it so that you will enjoy life better. David White sends us a super chat. He says, so Fauci says he's the science. People say he answers to the president, but he is the one who tells the president what to do on COVID. Is Fauci playing president? Well, I would say sometimes I think Fauci is playing beyond the president. It's almost like he's playing deity. But if Joe Biden is listening to only Fauci, maybe Joe Biden needs a bigger circle of influence. Why isn't he talking to people like Dr. Marty Makary at Johns Hopkins, or Dr. Jay, I believe it's pronounced Bhattacharya, I think that's right, from Stanford. I've interviewed him on my podcast. He has a really long name. Or Dr. Scott Atlas. There are a number of physicians, by the way, who are clinical physicians, and that means they are not just government employees. They actually see patients, and they review data in the light of the patients they see. That might be worth taking a look at. So, good question. This one comes from Angel in the Woods 23. Mr. Huckabee, why is Hunter Biden not being held accountable for what has been discovered on his laptop? Boy, that's a question I can't answer. I got to tell you, it makes no sense to me that the press, and this is why Donald Trump said they were the enemy of the people. It's bad enough that they lie about one side, but it's then even worse when they won't tell the truth about the other side. If you're not familiar with Miranda Devine's just released book called The Laptop from Hell, it's all about Hunter Biden's laptop. She is a reporter for the New York Post and a really good one. Google it. Get some information. I think you may want to get that book because it is a very powerful expose. It's not stuff she's heard. It's stuff that she's documented. She's actually seen what's on that laptop. And I can't even talk about it here because it would be highly inappropriate if some sensitive person were walking through your room. All right, let me go to, this is a clip from MSNBC. The anchor on MSNBC says that right-wing criticism of Dr. Fauci is evidence that the Republicans want there to be COVID because it's good for us. Where he gets this, I don't know. Watch it and see if you can make any sense of it.
Fauci's profiting off the vaccine, all these things that aren't true. And that moves into the mainstream of conservative media, and it becomes gospel that he's a villain and that somehow he's asserting his power by trying to get people vaccinated and protect the American public from this disease that's killed 700,000 people.
And it's because if people follow Fauci, there's likelier a chance that COVID will go away. And if COVID goes away, it's bad right now for Republicans. It's just the math on this, the political math on this is not hard to figure out.
That bald-headed guy with glasses at the end, John Heilemann, I know him. He covered me when I ran for president. Such a know-it-all, such an arrogant person. And I'm watching this, and I'm trying to get my head around what they're saying. It basically is that if you dare question Anthony Fauci or his motives, then you're an evil right-wing lunatic. Well, maybe it's because there's good evidence that Anthony Fauci helped to fund gain of research on the coronavirus at the Wuhan lab that later leaked and caused a meltdown of the world economy. Wouldn't that be nice to know if that happened? He said he had nothing to do with it, but it went through a third party. Your tax dollars, follow this now, your tax dollars to the National Institutes for Health then gave money, lots of it, to a third party entity, which then gave the money to the Wuhan lab. That way the NIH could say, oh, we didn't give money to Wuhan. Nope, you gave it to party number 2, who gave it to party number 3, so yes, you did. And there was real deception about how that money got to the Wuhan lab. There was also real deception about studies that apparently Dr. Fauci helped fund that involved putting bugs on beagle puppies and allowing them to be eaten alive by the bugs. Now, again, don't you think if a doctor was a conservative, he would be called into question, at least have to answer for that? Is Dr. Fauci removed from any responsibility or accountability for the things that he says? And when he claims that he is the science, I'm sorry, I got a little bit of a problem with that. This is the same Dr. Fauci that early on in the coronavirus outbreak told us, do not wear a mask. It is dangerous. You're not a professional. You don't know how to do it, so don't do it. And then a month or so later, You got to wear a mask. If you don't wear a mask, you're going to die. And by the end of the summer, wear 2 or 3 masks. We've been all over the place with this. I think we have every right to question people whose science is ever changing. And that's really what this is about. Richard Blanco says, I am angry all the time. It's impossible to be happy with Fauci and COVID cult. I totally understand where you're coming from on that, Richard. As I've said so many times, take it seriously, protect yourself, be vigilant, but don't curl up in a fetal position, crawl up under the bed, and fear that you're going to die today. Because there are a lot of other ways that things can happen to you, to me, to the rest of us. Here's a question from Andrew Steed. What's your opinion of what's happening in Australia with the camps? We have them being built here in the UK. How long until they use them? Well, first of all, great hearing from you in the UK. And it's really disturbing what's happening in Australia, where they are literally putting people in barbed wire encampments because they're not vaccinated. Now, would Americans ever tolerate that, put up with it? Gosh, I hope not. But I've seen Americans tolerate some stuff I never thought we would tolerate either. And some people, they want to have that kind of control. They want there to be government dominion over us. Well, I don't. I want the government to give me as much information as they can about various risks. And then I want them to leave me the heck alone and let me make some decisions for myself and my family. And hopefully we will make the right decisions. I want to go to a clip. This is Whoopi Goldberg on The View. I've known Whoopi for many years. She and I have gotten along a lot in the past. I'm not sure we do right now. I don't dislike her. I have great admiration. She's really a brilliant actor, and I wish she'd have stuck with that rather than hosting The View. But this week, she went off on a tear as it relates to abortion. She's clearly pro-abortion. As you probably know, if you've been around me, I am clearly pro-life from the moment of conception forward, so we differ there. But she goes on this rant about pro-life people. And one of the things she says defies what modern-day liberals are saying, and I'm wondering if she's going to get in trouble for this right here.
Do any of you men have any eggs or the possibility of carrying a fetus? How dare you talk about what a fetus wants? You have no idea. Now, I'm fine if you disagree with abortion. I have no problem with that. My problem comes when you tell me what I need to do with my doctor and my family. How dare you?
Well, Whoopi, I don't know if I need to break this to you, but there are a lot of people on your side of the aisle that think men can have babies. And these are the folks that are out there saying that just because a person is a man doesn't mean they can't have a baby or breastfeed. Now, there's a nuttiness going on in our culture right now that is hard for me to explain, even hard for me to describe. I think it is the lunatic left, but the people who are pushing the transgender idea to the furthest point are telling us that men can have periods, they can have babies, that they basically can do whatever women do just by imagining it. I'd love to see that happen, just so I could see that it really is true. Not that I really want to see it happen. But Whoopi may be in big trouble with her friends on the left because they get mad when people say there are only two genders and that one gender can't do what the other gender does. That would be a real shock to some of those folks who believe that they can. All right, we got this from Furball Amy. Says the stocks are taking a big hit. What's going to turn that back around, and what is your take on the Black Lives Matter saying to shop black-owned businesses only? Well, first of all, stock market always goes up and down, and I've learned through the years to never panic and probably don't pay attention on so much a daily basis because it'll drive you crazy. I've got friends that they'll look every few minutes to see what their stocks are doing. Well, look at your stocks over the course of a year or 2 or 5 years, not over the course of 5 minutes, because the fluctuation will happen. But as long as there's been a stock market, the long-term trajectory of the stock market has been that it has produced overall positive results. Now, it's possible you can get a bad stock. You can buy into a company that goes bankrupt. I think the key there is be careful about what you buy. Buy indexes. I'm not trying to be an advisor here. I'm just saying that generally that ought not to be your biggest worry, because overall the market will go back up, and it's lately been about as high as it's ever been. It keeps going up. Hey, I want to tell you something. We are about to launch our very own Huckabee merchandise store. You can finally get some awesome Huckabee hats, shirts, mugs, and a whole lot more. And we've got people who are designing some more great items for the future as well. I don't get a thing out of this. I promise I don't. I get nothing. I don't even know how much it costs. I won't know till I see it when it comes up. But people have been asking, hey, can we get like mugs or T-shirts with the logo? Because when people come to our show, we have stuff that we give away to our studio audience. And so as people have been asking for it, I'm proud to say that all of the items in the store are 100% American made. That in itself is pretty rare, don't you think? But the store is coming soon to Huckabee.tv. Of course, I'll give you more details when it goes live, but you'll be able to see it for yourself. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. That's something we always ask for you to do. And you can leave a comment. Be sure to hit the notification bell and share with other people. Now, this weekend, we've got a great show coming up. We're going to have Kayleigh McEnany, whose first job was not at the White House with President Trump, but it was working for me when I did my show at the Fox News Channel. We'll be talking with her. We've got Matt Walsh, a fascinating blogger and columnist who will be with us, who got in a lot of trouble on social media because he had the audacity to say that there are two genders, male and female. And that one little expression of scientific fact got him in an enormous amount of trouble. Trey Corley and the Music City Connection, our resident house band, the best there is. They have some very special Christmas music for us. It's going to be a show that you do not want to miss, not that you want to miss any of our shows. So I hope you will be watching. And by the way, if you kind of want to get a little preview of what's going to be taking place, take a look at this.
This week on Huckabee, kick off the Christmas season with the Music City Connection. Kayleigh McEnany reflects on Trump's presidency. The Daily Wire's Matt Walsh and Charles Psaki performs. Watch Huckabee Saturday at 8, 7 Central and again on Sunday at 9, 8 Central right here on TBN.